Go.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for everyone being here. I appreciate your time, dedication, and willingness to learn something new. Today, I am with Shakita Johnson and Amy Argerio. They are both going to be talking about social media being used as somewhat of a drug or a substance use disorder associated with social media. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for being here as well. For those of you that don't know me, just in case you're new to this, my name is Ruth Dopino. I'm a prevention educator for the Mercer Council on Alcoholism and Drug Addiction. I do this every Thursday from 12 to 1. So we're going to let them take it away. And hopefully we're going to learn something really new and really exciting.
Thank you. I appreciate the introduction, Ruth. My name is Shakita Johnson. I'm the Youth Development Specialist at UN High School. Thank you all for joining.
And I'm Amy Argerio. I'm a program coordinator at the Mercer Council, and I work with middle school students. And welcome to Is Social Media a Drug? So before we even start our presentation, I thought maybe we could do a little icebreaker quiz to see what our relationship is with social media. So what I'd like you to do is hold up 6 fingers, and I'm going to ask a question, and for every yes to the question, put a finger down. Okay, so you feel anxious when you cannot access social media. Social media usage is cutting into your work or into your daily life or any home responsibilities. You have an immediate response to notification beeps, rings, and on your phone, anywhere. You constantly look at likes. Your family, friends say you are distant or becoming distant. And the last question is, you overshare every thought you have for approval. So take a look at your fingers and see how many you have left standing. Ruth, it looks like you have 4. That's actually very good. You only put your fingers, you said yes to 2. So what we'd like to do is talk about what is our relationship with social media. How do we react to social media? How does it impact our life in general, in daily life? How does it impact you? So for me, I'll start off right now. I can honestly say I have no impact or relationship whatsoever with social media, simply because I do not have any social media. I do not have Facebook, Instagram. What are the other ones?
Twitter.
Snapchat, Twitter. Actually I have one, Pinterest, but I'm rarely ever on Pinterest. That is my claim to say maybe I'm part of social media. But the reason goes back 10, 15 years ago when Facebook first came out. I was influenced with when people started using Facebook, and I was in a little league baseball game team, part of an organization, and I was watching little league moms fighting with each other. And it was going through Facebook. They weren't getting along. They would make comments or posts on their Facebook page, and another person would take it was a direction at them, but the person would say, oh no, I didn't mean it to that person, which I knew absolutely that was directed at that person. And there was such chaos on our baseball team that one summer that I kind of became fearful of it. To me, it became like a negative tool, like they're using this, what should be a good thing, from my understanding, because it was so new, was suddenly becoming a tool, a negative weapon to hurt people. So it kind of shut me down. I didn't want any part of it. It was chaotic, and I didn't want any part of it or have any relationship with it whatsoever. And I'm proud to say to this day, I'm the same way.
Good job. I can't say the same. For me, social media started out as a way to connect with college friends. When I first started on Facebook, you had to have an EDU email to get on. So was the bloom for me overall. Like I had to still do dial-up. So, I had AOL AIM, but I wasn't so engrossed in it because, you still had to share it with other siblings and connect to the phone. Our parents just wasn't with it. So I do know for me, it still is a way to connect. I do get into the juicy stuff here and there, But nowadays, social media is so much more. It involved in so many ways, many great positive ways, but also a few negative ways as well. Like it has such a major impact on people's lives. People can't live without it. They can't go without it. For me, I think I can go without it. I'm not convinced yet that I have an addiction. We'll see by the end
She's
of
not
this.
convinced. I speak otherwise.
We'll see by the end of this if we do. The purpose of this presentation isn't to make it all bad, just to bring awareness that one can easily become addicted to this. We want this to be a lighthearted, fun conversation. So please feel free to chime in, and we welcome all questions, concerns, and comments. And we're not taking any of this too serious.
So does anybody want to share right now? You can write in the chat or unmute yourself. Like, how does social media affect you? What does it mean to you?
Well, I think for me, when I first started on social media, it was a way to connect with other people, obviously, because I am 25, I'm a millennial. I'm able to use that as like social media as a space for me to connect with others. But at the same time, what I have noticed is the growing frustration I have with social media in general. Like I'm also someone that really enjoys handwritten letters and, face-to-face interaction. And that's not to say that you can't have both. I definitely have both. I use social media and I handwrite letters. Those are both things I do. But it's just the moment of whether or not social media replaces the human interaction is when I become frustrated.
I think it does, but we can discuss that a little later in the presentation. Does anyone else want to share or have a comment?
Oh, so we got something in the chat. Melissa says, I get stuck in news headlines and politics, and sometimes it can be very heated.
Yeah.
Vanessa also said, I enjoy news feeding on Facebook, and now I'm hooked on scrolling through the news feed on LinkedIn too.
Well, thank you for your comments thus far, and let's hope you have more later on, and we can continue the conversation as the presentation progresses.
So let's define what is the definition of substance abuse and misuse. It's formally defined as continued misuse of any mind-altering substance that really affects your life, your emotional, mental, physical, and social aspects of all life. It changes who you are. It changes behavior. That is your formal substance abuse misuse. Is there a connection with social addiction, social media addiction? Is there a connection with the two?
Amy, I definitely think it is. It may not fit tightly in this definition, but it fits very well, and we can explore what the definition of social media addiction is now. In summarization, defining what social media addiction is, it's basically a behavior of being overly concerned about social media. The uncontrollable urge to log on or to use social media. You spend hours, just scrolling. Like you may have intentionally went on there just for 5 minutes, and then that 5 minutes turned into an hour or two. Is anyone aware? I don't even know if it's an official terminology for it, but I coined it or named it as the invisible ding or the invisible vibration. You think your phone went off and you go check it and it's nothing there. I feel like there's some addictive measures in to that, and it's just like I'm guilty. I'm guilty of that. My phone could be across the room and I think it went off, and I'm want to keep it on vibrate. So I never really officially hear the ding, but in my mind I heard the ding. So I'm always checking, and I'm also guilty of waking up and rolling over, and what do? I get on social media. Like I'm kind of a little embarrassed sometimes, even before I get up to use the bathroom or brush my teeth. Like I may have an addiction, and we'll see by the end of this. I'm not owning it just yet, but we'll definitely see.
I can relate to the ding part with the phone when you have a text message coming in. That I can relate to, that I hear the phantom ding that, I have a message, and there's no message there. It's just maybe wishful thinking on my end that I have a message coming in, but I can definitely relate to that part of, even though it's not social media, it's still phone related. It's waiting for that instant text message to come in from somewhere or someone.
Yeah. So I have a question for our audience. If you all care to share, please unmute or write it in the chat. Why would one consider social media a drug? Would you consider it? Have you not thought about it? Is this, we are in the beginning of the presentation, but has anything that we said thus far been alarming? May we please have some feedback if anyone chooses to share? And if not, I can start. I can be the guinea pig first. I think it can be considered a drug because, as we mentioned earlier, like, you start to become dependent on it. You start to almost have an itch or build up this anxiety when it's not on your person or near you. How many young people carry around chargers? Not one charger, but chargers. Like, they have to have one in the car, they have to have one on their person, they have to have one in their room, one in the living room, one in the bathroom. Like, I've never seen so many chargers in a person's house, persons being my house, ever. Like, it's chargers everywhere, outer boxes, like everywhere. Like, relationships are altered if you take someone's charger. You can get them at Five and Below, but relationships are like ended because you took my charger or I can't find it. So I definitely think, of course, we're not saying, it's completely harmful in the aspect of, like, you're pumping something into your body drug wise, but it definitely alters your mind, your mood, and in some cases your physical state. And we will definitely talk about that a little later, some of the negative effects social media can have on one's body.
So what we do know about social media and the possibility of the social media addiction is it does produce a surge of dopamine, and that is in your reward center of the brain, and the dopamine is released and your behavior becomes reinforced and you're left wanting more. It's the same as with alcohol and drugs. The dopamine is released, your reward center is activated, the dopamine is released, your behavior becomes reinforced, and then you want more. So it's like taking alcohol or doing some form of drug. It's the same cycle. So how is it without a drug? Your reinforced behavior is tweets, retweets, thumbs up, likes. That is what's being reinforced. So the more likes you get, oh, I got to keep doing this because I'm going to get more and more likes. Social media, perform the action where you share your post, waiting for a reaction, thumbs up, comments are big too.
Mm-hmm.
And then your reactions are the rewards. And then it's just a vicious cycle. Also, it's the same. Think about your behaviors when you're addicted to something, and social media is no different. Do you crave it? Are you craving social media? Now, for me, no, because I've never even tried it. So I don't have a craving. But if you try it once or twice, suddenly you start seeing yourself craving and looking at the device at the expense of doing an activity, at the expense of doing homework. You're noticing you're using it more and more, you're craving it, you need to see it. Tolerance, you're building up a tolerance, you need more to be fulfilled. So maybe an hour or two was enough in the beginning. And now you're noticing, oh wow, it's not an hour or two, it's 5 hours. Now it's a day or two, now it's a week. Now it's just succumbed your whole, you just are building up the tolerance. You need it more and more and more to fulfill whatever needs you have. And then you withdraw. Can you go without your social media? What are you like when you don't have your access to your social media? So when we lose power and you can't charge your phone and you can't access your social media, how do you become? Do you become anxious? Do you get nervous? Are you worried about what you're missing out on? These are all behaviors of addiction. Yeah. And, just with the storms last night, my daughter had friends over and they were studying and hanging out. And what were they worried about? What if we lose power? I can't charge my phone. I'm at 10%.
Yeah. That was me last night too. I was on a video chat with one of my girlfriends. And actually my phone, it was doing a lot last night. It was like overheating and things. So I was like, I gotta go. I need to charge my phone just in case if I lose power. So I'm able to use it, throughout the storm. I don't know how long it's gonna last. So I can definitely concur with the ladies last night. But on the flip side, I want to play devil's advocate a little. So the cycle Amy talked about is about the cycle of rewards and gratifications and the happiness of it. But what happens when you don't get those likes? What happens when you don't get those shares? What is your mood? How do you feel? One becomes depressed, or you try to one up that last post that did get enough likes and satisfactions for you. And a lot of the one ups, you start to play a dangerous game. And not everyone does this, or not every adventure is the same, but about the ones who I was skateboarding on one foot, let's just use it as an example. So now they posted a video of just regular skating, didn't get that many likes, so now they're going to try to one up the 1 foot skating. So now I'm going to skate on my hands, and it's just like, that's really dangerous. Like, you can fall and break a bone. And I know that was a weird, crazy example, but that was just an example I came up with. So when you don't get the reactions that you're looking for, you tend to start to one up. You tend to stop being your authentic self and start being someone for social media, and that isn't always a good thing. That isn't always a glamorous thing. You start to have an ugly attitude, or you just start to do things that are not within you, or that can be potentially harmful. Because let's face facts, drama and crazy things is what's truly getting all the likes and praise nowadays, and it's not always a good thing. Do anyone have any comments or scenarios that they would like to share? Comments, or unmute yourself.
We're right in the chat box.
When you were talking about the reaction that you would get, you sort of one up your behavior, right? When I sort of see it as also someone who may have and this may be an extreme example, and this is just psychology, but people who may have abandonment issues, they test their partners or the people around them to see if they're going to leave or stay. And social media and that interaction sort of reminds me of that cycle, or of that psyche in general, of how people have that symbiotic relationship of response and reward. So that's really interesting.
Thank you. That was a great point. I never really thought about it that way, but I completely agree. Thank you so much, Ruth. So here's where it gets fun for us. We would like to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of social media. As you can all see, the good has been left blank. And that was because we're sure that everyone can discuss and figure out and come up with about 3 or 4 slides worth of what the good is. And once again, putting that disclaimer out there, we're not trying to solely say social media is bad, don't use it. We're just trying to bring awareness to the addictive nature of social media. So if you can unmute or drop some comments in the chat section, what do you think is some of the good of social media? Amy, do you think it's any good to social media? And you don't have it, but
I don't have it, but I do understand, and I see the good to it. It's just a way of connecting with people, especially family who live across the country. It's an easy way and a quick way to connect with someone and keep up with their life. We have friends in Des Moines, Iowa that we never get to see. I think it was 15 years ago was the last time we saw them. That would be a great way for me to stay connected with them, other than through text or phone calls, which you don't do as often as if, oh, let me just go on Facebook and see what they're up to. It's a great way to stay connected. I just witnessed it also turn ugly, so it's just kept me back. Also, I do feel within me, I would become obsessed with it too.
Ooh, this is really good. I see the comment section numbers going up. I can't see the messages because we're sharing, but they're just coming in. Ruth, do you mind sharing with us?
So we have quite a few different things. Vanessa said to keep others connected, which I think is probably the biggest point people have with social media. The next one is sharing pictures of family, friends, things like that. Finding friends you may have lost touch with. Also, maybe a high school friend announcements of public events, job openings, networking, learning of upcoming events, and social media can also be used in cases of emergencies.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Right.
definitely agree. And I also have to say, for the younger generation, for a lot of them, this has become their means, their employment, or their
Mhm.
means of making a living, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I think it's a bad thing when your reality, your online presence doesn't match your reality. And with that being said, we can shift to what the bad side is about how what's perceived online and how you're really living isn't matching up, or you are trying to live the life of what you see on reality. Not everyone let's take an online influencer. They get paid to share clothing and other things of that sort. Some of the condos they stay in, it's all being paid for by someone else. No shade to them. Like, I appreciate it, I wish I could, but so many people want to live up to the standards of these people and don't have the means, so they're robbing Peter to pay Paul, or they're now don't have enough money to get a car or other expenses because they're living in this grand home because they want to be or emulate what they see on social media. And I don't think that's really expressed or talked about as much, even with the influencers. And I know that's not really their job to put every single detail of their lives out there, like, yeah, we're staying here because it's a paid partnership. Yeah, they do that with closing things, but with their cars and their living, I wouldn't expect them to do that. But I'm also wise enough to understand so many young people aren't. And it just sucks that reality doesn't always match what's online. The increased usage, as I stated earlier, like, I will open my eyes in the morning, stretch, and roll over and get on social media. I know some people who actually set a timer to get up maybe a half an hour earlier than what their need to or could, because they want to have that morning social media time before they have to get up and get dressed for their day. That's when you're setting alarms and carving out time, one can say that's a good thing because you're putting yourself on a time frame. But when it's affecting, or like you have to put a timer to incorporate so you can function daily, I think that's a bit much. Like, it does become very, very addictive, and just the fear of missing out. Like, you have to be in the knowns with everything. I've feeling guilty to that too, with a few topics that I'm really interested in, but like, everything and always having to be on the scene or in the knowns or the latest fashion trends or just trending topics, that consumes a lot of time and money. That's a lot.
For me, the self-image issues is a big deal, because now you have filters and people filter their pictures on their social media pages. And that's just so raw for me for the person who's filtering, and then for other people who are seeing the filters. Like, what message are you saying that you don't feel worthy of how you are real? So I ran into someone that I used to work with, and they were showing me some pictures from their Facebook about former coworkers. And there was one, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I was completely blown away with the look. The very next day, I met that person at CVS and was blown away with her looks, because she looked exactly like I saw her the day I left my old job. And I was very confused, not really confused, but I felt bad. Like, why do you have to portray yourself on your social media page that it's really not you? Because the very next day you look at that and you're fine the way you look. But what are we telling young people? That you're not good enough? That you have to portray yourself differently on your social media and than who you really are as a person? And as a mother of two young women, it concerns me. Even my son, I see too. I mean, it doesn't just apply to male, female. It's even my son. Like, why can't you just be happy of who you are, and how you look, why do you have to do filters? And filters are becoming huge.
Yeah. And then it gets even worse with the bullying and cyberbullying. And it goes to say why some people, that answers your question, why some people might have to or feel the need to put the filters on there, because bullying and cyberbullying. And I feel like every so often those numbers keep increasing. And yes, there's a whole lot of data there, and we didn't want to, bore you with the data. And I'm sure all of us are in education or prevention. We all know what the numbers are and how high they are. So yeah, it's social media is great to connect, but there's also an ugly side to it, and it's not the consumer's fault.
Right.
There's many measures in place to make us become addicted, to make us these, bullies or fashion models that we want to be or we want to emulate. Yeah, we can have self-control and believe and love in ourselves, but there's measures implemented to help us this ugly process alone. And we have some information to share with you about that coming up. I believe it's next. Oh no, we have one more slide before that.
This one I proudly said I'm going to have Shakita take over trending topics and themes, because not having social media, I only hear of some trending topics and themes through my own children. And some of them, I'm not really up to the latest ones. Going through this process now, Shakita was sharing with me some of the latest trending topics. I do want to share, there's one theme, and it goes back a couple of years, where I think it was the start of these types of trending themes, was the Ice Bucket Challenge, the ALS. That was such a fantastic theme, trending topic on social media to raise money and awareness to ALS. And so many people got involved in the Ice Bucket Challenge, and they raised so much money for it. That was a positive theme, a positive trend.
Mhm.
And I think since then I've seen other ones, but we've also seen some dark themes and dark trending themes, with as you'll say, the cinnamon challenge and Tide Pods.
Yeah. And even more recently, the silhouette challenge. And if no one knows what that is, you are on screen, fully clothed, maybe looking bummy or normal, in regular clothing. And then it's a red screen and it shows your figure, which I think is cool. We're all for promoting, body image, love yourself. However, what went more trending or more viral is that people were able to remove the red filter, and a lot of people were nude or close to nude on there. Now we're borderline in pornographic images and or screenshotting and sending this to people. So now you are sending pornographic images. Charges can be brought. You're now embarrassing people, even though they put it on there. They shared it with their following, and the purpose was to have a filter so there was some sort of privacy. These dancing trends, great, love them, but where it goes left for me are when you are inconveniencing others' lives. For instance, I've seen a video where a group of guys, they're standing on restaurant tables. Why are you standing on tables people have to eat at? And what was more alarming, when the owner came and asked them to leave or get down, they disregarded his request. And how about they continue to go viral? That's where the addictive nature and the negative part comes in for me. You're so addicted to getting views and likes that you are going to disrespect someone's establishment. This is not your home. This is not your place. And I've seen it so many times over and over and over. Another example is the one where they are attempting to steal sneakers or jewelry out of a store. Yeah, it's fun and games, but not all people are going to allow you to explain and say, hey, I was just trying to record a video. Now you have theft charges. Would anyone else have any trending topics they would like to discuss or talk about, or just any questions, comments, or concerns about this topic in general? Feel free to unmute or drop some comments in the comment section.
again, it's such a great idea to do trending topics, but it always seems to go to the next level just for more likes.
Yeah.
They'll take it to the next level, just like on Instagram pictures, when people are trying to take that most amazing Instagram picture hanging off a cliff. And just in recent weeks, people have died by falling off the cliff. You kind of tend to lose common sense when you're trying to get those likes and to be original more so than what you're seeing out there. You want to be one up on everybody.
And just like you said, Shakita, like sometimes it's really cute. Like some of those dances are really cute and they're really athletic. But so there was a cute trend just the other day about eating a certain type of pasta on Monday. And like my daughter was like, can we go buy a box of this pasta? Like it was just kind of cute. Like take a picture of yourself eating a bowl of this pasta. And that's fine. But you know, some are a little bit more dangerous, like you said. One that concerned me a lot, obviously years ago, the cinnamon challenge, that was a big one. But one thing that concerns me is some of the mental health challenges. Some bring awareness to certain disorders, but some, I don't want to say glorify, but it's almost like a mocking tone or a comparison of like, this is how damaged I am kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those people are really trying to call for help, but sometimes I don't know how much they're damaging the stigma for others.
Right.
So those are some disturbing trends I've seen. But then on the other hand, I've seen some fantastic stuff. Like Ruth and I were talking about Indigenous culture. Like I've learned a lot from Indigenous TikTok about their culture and their dancing and their dresses and their relationships and stuff. So it's interesting to see what you get linked into sometimes.
Yeah. And once again, we do think, trending topics are great, and we're not saying, don't do it, don't participate. It's just even with the good, let's not even focus on the negative. Even with the good, you still become addicted, or you still want more, or you still want to one up another. A few years ago, it was just called the flash mob, and you would just see them doing it in Target, or at least that's what I see. It was just in Target. Now it's any and everywhere you go. They stop traffic. They're doing it, getting on the airplane. Like, you're inconveniencing so many people. It's fun, lighthearted, cool, want to see it, applaud you on, but you're inconveniencing so many lives. Like, why can't we just go to the amusement park to have fun? Why every 5 seconds we gotta set up shop and do these dances? My whole day is recording and or dancing because I need to one up my last video. I need to keep putting content out there. It's like you're chasing that addictive nature. I think a lot of trending topics are great. The whole feta pasta was cool, but then for like a month you couldn't find feta cheese. What about those cultures who depend on that? That's a staple in their, food grocery shopping. How did we impact their lives because we wanted to jump on the trending feta pasta thing? It was, feta cheese was almost out for a month. How do I know? Because I decided to jump on the feta pasta bandwagon, and I wanted to create, no judging. This is a judge-free zone. Don't judge me. But, we got to think like how life-altering some of these things are. And it may seem minute, or one may think, oh, Shakita, you're just being extra with your logic. But these really affect others' lives tremendously.
And we're just starting the conversation. People now are starting to see the addiction in social media, and the conversation is becoming more aware, and people are talking about it more and making the connection with the actual, even though it's not the same as alcohol and drugs, it can still have the same effects of change in behavior and lack of common sense sometimes too.
Mm-hmm.
You're not using common sense to get that like on your thing, to do those crazy stunts that you're endangering yourself or others.
Yeah.
Oh, we have something in the chat. Vanessa said a while back was the In My Feelings challenge, where fans leap out of their cars to dance to this new hit, In My Feelings. And they were moving alongside vehicles, which obviously was nice, but it was also dangerous.
Yeah.
Very dangerous, not just for themselves, but the other cars that are driving. Like people aren't thinking about their surroundings or other people. They just have to get that like, they want to go one up. They want to go viral.
As I mentioned before, we didn't become this way alone. There were systems in place, excuse me, to help us become addicted or wanting more or to be so involved. And here's a short video, a 3-4 minute video on information about that.
With social media sites being used by 1/3 of the entire world, they've clearly had a major influence on society. But what about our bodies? Here are 5 crazy ways that social media and the internet are affecting your brain right now. Can't log off? Surprisingly, 5 to 10% of internet users are actually unable to control how much time they spend online. Though it's a psychological addiction as opposed to a substance addiction, brain scans of these people actually show a similar impairment of regions that those with drug dependence have. Specifically, there's a clear degradation of white matter in the regions that control emotional processing, attention, and decision-making. Because social media provides immediate rewards with very little effort required, your brain begins to rewire itself, making you desire these stimulations, and you begin to crave more of this neurological excitement after each interaction. Sounds a little like a drug, right? We also see a shift when looking at multitasking. You might think that those who use social media or constantly switch between work and websites are better at multitasking, but studies have found that when comparing heavy media users to others, they perform much worse during task switching tests. Increased multitasking online reduces your brain's ability to filter out interferences and can even make it harder for your brain to commit information to memory, like when your phone buzzes in the middle of productive work. Or wait, did it even buzz? Phantom vibration syndrome is a relatively new psychological phenomenon where you think you felt your phone go off, but it didn't. In one study, 89% of test subjects said they experienced this at least once every 2 weeks. It would seem that our brains now perceive an itch as an actual vibration from our phone. As crazy as it seems, technology has begun to rewire our nervous system, and our brains are being triggered in a way they never have before in history. Social media also triggers a release of dopamine, the feel-good chemical. Using MRI scans, scientists found that the reward centers in people's brains are much more active when they're talking about their own views as opposed to listening to others. Not so surprising, we all love talking about ourselves, right? But it turns out that while 30 to 40% of face-to-face conversations involve communicating our own experiences, around 80% of social media communication is self-involved. The same part of your brain related to orgasms, motivation, and love are stimulated by your social media use, and even more so when you know you have an audience. Our body is physiologically rewarding us for talking about ourselves online. But it's not all so self-involved. In fact, studies on relationships have found that partners tend to like each other more if they meet for the first time online rather than with a face-to-face interaction. Whether it's because people are more anonymous or perhaps more clear about their future goals, there's a statistical increase in successful partnerships that started online. So while the internet has changed our verbal communication with increased physical separation, perhaps the ones that matter the most end up even closer. Speaking of social media, we had you ask us questions on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, Google+, and every other social platform we could find, and did a Q&A video over on ASAP Thought. So if you feel like getting some insider info.
So that was a great video to echo some of the things that we had already mentioned here. And it wasn't a super in-depth example of how you didn't become addicted alone. It gave you some brief insight in how there's data and studies on ways to get you and keep you addicted. And I believe it was a Netflix series, Amy.
Yes, Social Dilemma.
That went way more in depth. So if you have the time, check it out, Social Dilemma. Like, it actually has some of the creators and the people who created the like button and why they created the like button and how they did it specifically so it can keep you more engaged and wanting to be on social media or other sites more. But time permitted, we had to find a short video. So in a nutshell, this video explains how the scientists know that these things are happening to our brains and our bodies. And in the Netflix series or documentary, you actually get to hear from the actual creators, like, we know this will happen, or we know these changes are happening, so we implemented X, Y, and Z to feed off of that.
It was purposely designed knowing that there would be quote unquote, an addiction to the social media that they were developing. They knew going in what it was going to do. I don't think they knew to the extent and how far it would go, but they knew there was an addictive component that they were developing.
With social media.
So moving along, something that none of us knew what happened to us or even can fathom how to process through it. We've been in this pandemic for what, 1.5 years now, almost 2 years. I lost track of time, but the effects of COVID-19 and social media. Now, while this is like a natural occurrence that, you know, wasn't implemented by science or a human, I really feel like COVID-19 has played a part in the aiding to social media addiction. Many people were laid off or the school was closed. Then when school did get back up and running, or some people had jobs working from home, they still had the flexibility to be on a computer or near their phone more. The kids are only going to school a half a day, so they have so much more time to be on social media.
And it was a way for especially teenagers to connect and to see what was going on in the world outside, what was happening, how are they going to stay connected, and meeting with, that was their form of meeting through social media, and connecting with their friends. I actually was sharing with Shakita, I came very close during COVID-19 of starting a Facebook page for that exact reason. I came so close, but I know myself so well, I didn't want to be a stalker and be so in tune to what else was going on out there. And I also know that about me because I did become addicted to a game, Get Candy Crush, years ago. And I had all 3 games and I was close to, I think, 1,000 at the level. And I waited for the lives to come back. So if I lost 5 lives, I moved to the next game and I moved to the 3rd game. And by the time I was done the 3rd game, I was back to the 1st game. And it truly did interfere in my daily life of raising my kids. Dinners were started late, or dinners were started and, oh, I had to turn it off the burner because I had another life. I had to play another game. I didn't want to burn food. I noticed this ugly pattern within me. This is all just reflection on myself. And I threw my iPad at my son and I said, delete it for me. That's going years ago. During COVID, suddenly I found Candy Crush was already on my work computer. And I thought, oh my gosh, well, let me just see. And I started playing. I got to level 300 and my son was home on lockdown. I said, Tommy, you have to delete this for me because I saw the same pattern starting and I couldn't do it. I was missing my favorite shows at night because I was so worried about getting my lives and getting to the next level. So that's how I knew it's not a good thing for me.
So I think unknowingly, a lot of people may have fallen into the trap or become addicted or more addicted because of the effect of COVID-19. Not saying that, you know, not trying to make it a bad thing, but we're just putting facts or our opinions out there that, you know, COVID-19 may have had an effect currently with people becoming addicted or more addicted to social media just because of the free time everyone had.
It sped the process up.
Yeah.
Eventually it might have just taken longer, but COVID-19 sped the process up.
We couldn't leave you all without giving you ways to disconnect or recenter. We weren't here to bash social media. Once again, we were just here to bring awareness. So with awareness comes ways to become better or just do things slightly differently. So here are a few ways that we determined you can disconnect and recenter, and feel free to drop in a chat. Or if you want to have an open dialogue with us, you can unmute yourself and let's chat. But some of the ways you can recenter and disconnect is unplug, completely turn it off, put it away. And it doesn't have to be for weeks and months. Start out with a few hours. And then once you can, you know, do a few hours, start with a day. And from a day, go to a week. And if you need to, go to a month. Whatever is for you. There's no right or wrong. There's no time frame. It's all up to which you need and how much unplugging you need. For students, if you play a sport, heck, for even adults, play a sport, get a job or a second job, join a club. There's many clubs out there for adults as well as students at school. Brainstorm future plans or goals, start a business. I feel like small businesses have boomed during COVID. That's an option. Find an activity that doesn't require electronic device, crocheting, reading, binge watching some Netflix, cooking.
That's what I was gonna say, cooking. Start, small with finding, recipes that you might want to try, you're using activity by cooking. I'd say baking also. I'm just not a baker, so I like to cook.
But it's never too late to try. That's all a part of life experiences and adventures. And I feel like we do miss out a lot on that because we're so involved in social media. You may never know. You may not have been a baker before, but you don't know what you're capable of now until you try it.
Well, I kind of laugh. You made a good point. We're so involved in what everyone else is doing. We're so involved in what everyone else is cooking. Why don't you try cooking?
Yeah. Does anyone have any feedback on this slide? Want to share?
In the chat, we also have read a book. Actually, what I've noticed is when I need to sort of unplug, I still use social media or like a technology in order to disconnect. And I think also the thing is that using social media or technology in a way that benefits you rather than it reinforces dopamine is probably the best way to sort of have a healthy relationship with technology. So for me, especially, I listen to Audible or Hoopla, and they're Audible books, and I listen and I'm connected to social media or I'm interacting with technology, but I'm still doing something else. So I'll either be cooking or baking or, playing with my nieces, playing a board game with them. It's sort of like a nice middle ground to say this is a space to connect, but it's also a space to enhance the experiences we already have.
Thank you. And I think that's a great point, to find that middle ground. And that's what I mentioned before, like whatever works for you. You don't have to go cold turkey. Cold turkey isn't for everyone. So find whatever middle ground, find whatever works for you, customize it for you and your lifestyle.
Yeah, Melissa, I saw that you took yourself off camera for a second. I don't know if you're still there.
I put it in the chat. I just said, ironically, sometimes people use social media to unwind from some of the things that you suggested, like school, your job, those kind of things. Like they just, like that's part of their chill process. But then, that can reinforce kind of the reward system that social media can have.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. And then sometimes it leads into it's like, oh, I deserve this break and I can just, surf through whatever. And then after a while, it just gets longer and longer and kind of start justifying it. And like, well, I worked hard today, or I did this, just kind of like what happens when there's certain substance use disorders and certain, eating disorders, you start justifying it and it ties back to that reward.
Right. It's like a 15-minute break became a 3-hour break and you had no idea it even passed. The 3 hours passed.
Amen.
So the next slide is, we just had a lot of fun when we found these pictures and basically said, this is our life. Your life on a leash, tied and bound to the media, to social media. And both Shakira and I just laughed when we saw this. Now, I don't have social media, but I have a phone. And that's me on my phone. With my phone, I have to have my phone with me. It has to be charged. I have to be near a charger waiting for the next text message or a phone call. It's, even though it might not be social media, but it's still a connection I'm tied to my phone. If I don't have my phone with me, I've gone to work and have left work to come home and get my phone because I left my phone home.
And I'm not one to have mine charged. Like, I'm okay if it dies in most instances. Now, if I'm out and about, especially when I'm too far away from home, it's more of a security to have the phone charged, so a case of emergency. But I can definitely go without letting it be charged. But this doesn't have to be so literal. It can be figuratively. An example, I'm embarrassed to say, but I'm going to share. I literally walked into a pool because I was tied and bound to my phone. I'm almost certain I was on social media and ran smack into a pool. There's a problem. I could have seriously injured myself. So definitely, I think as we progress in the presentation, I think, the first step is always admitting, I think I'm gonna have to find a social media anonymous class. I think I may be addicted.
So here's our next one. If you want to unmute or just write in the chat box, just look at this picture and tell me what your thoughts are. Can you relate to this picture? Or have you ever been in a situation where you're like, oh yeah, I'm guilty of that?
Yeah, like, are you connected but disconnected? And it doesn't have to be just in a relationship
No.
with your spouse, but with friends and family,
With your children.
with colleagues. Like, are you always attached to your phone when trying to have that human interaction and connection? Are you in an open relationship per se? Like, any thoughts? And if not, that's fine too. Don't feel obligated to speak. We just want this to be an open conversation and just, bring some awareness.
I think sometimes we forget that proximity is not the same as closeness and communication.
Mhm.
So like some people will think that they spend a lot of time together with their family, but if you truly look at it, they're all sitting in the same room,
Mhm.
but they're all connected to
phone.
something else and not
Right.
to each other. And I think this picture just really emphasizes that too. And
Yeah.
I've been on dates with my husband, and like after a while, it's like, okay, now what? And I'll pull out my phone, So it has become one of those tethers.
Yes, I think we're all guilty of that. I think that's just where we are.
Mhm. This one,
Yeah, I love this one.
take it over.
I love this one because I think this is just so appropriate right now. There you are, someone's sad, not feeling good, they're low, but yet they go on Instagram and look at the picture. Life is good, life is happy. So many people can relate to this picture. You just want to paint a picture perfect reality.
Mhm. And then also on the flip side, like, you get made fun of being authentically you and saying like you need help or you're sad or depressed or not in a good space. People tend to mock you. So you have to put on that
Mhm.
facade that you're okay. So it can go both ways. And once again, we're not saying it's bad. There are support groups and people that will help. Once again, we're just bringing awareness to the ugly side of social media and having a social media addiction.
Self-reflection, where do we fit in with all this?
Now, this one was my favorite, Mourning the Lost. And this was more a figuratively picture, but like we are losing touch of reality. Everything is so virtual, everything is what someone wanted to be, or making things look good, and it's not. And I don't follow a bunch of social media influencers, but you tend to see some fall off, or when some of the relationships break up, how it truly comes, or just later on down in life, years later, they'll tell you like, I suffered depression, or I was so sad. It truly isn't what I made it to be. I was just doing a job. But there are so many young people out here, or even adults, that follow all these people and want to be them or emulate their life, when behind scenes or in real life, they were truly struggling. But with the music, with the game systems, with social media, phones, we're not really living in reality. It's all a virtual, made up world. And that made upness can be based on society or just the image and illusion of what I actually want to be, live, and feel. Does anyone have any thoughts on this or comments? If not, we'll keep going.
I always find it interesting, just quickly, that we sort of talk about influencers and how they obviously influence today's youth, right? And I think that that what a lot of the older generations that I've come across may fall on deaf ears, to be honest, because it's as if older people tend to have this, and I'm going to make a blanket statement, so I just want to make that clear, this a superiority when it comes to, well, I didn't grow up with technology, I don't, like, I'm not addicted. And it's as if saying it's the problem of the children, that they're the ones that are the people that are completely in control of their actions. And to a degree, yes, but their society and our society is shaped around our connectedness over the internet. So I think it's also good to say that, yes, there are people who make decisions and influencers who make decisions based on that, but also understanding that if the generation the generation above us grew up with technology, I guarantee they'd be the same way we would be. So it's just as if saying people grow up in this space and people just make room for those spaces, and we need to understand that human behavior is human behavior regardless of the age.
Mm-hmm.
I I also had someone say something that was very profound, that when we say when I was your age to a teenager, technically we've never been their age, because we weren't 15 in this technology era. We weren't 15 during a pandemic. We weren't 15 with the upheavals that we're seeing socially and politically or economically. So technically we've never been somebody's age before us, because the circumstances during that time of their life is so different. Now, I'm not saying we're completely unrelatable, but I'm just saying there's so many nuances and so many outside forces that we just might not grasp, or that we don't grasp, because we never truly lived that age.
Thank you. I appreciate all the comments. I appreciate you all being here. This concludes our presentation. We do have a list of our resources here. And we thank you. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, you can reach myself at my email below.
And you can reach myself at my email below.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed. And I hope this can be a conversation starter in your life, whether you are addicted, think you may be addicted, know someone else, or just have a strong opinion on this topic in general. Please.
And just like with drugs and alcohol, not everybody becomes addicted. Just like that. Social media, not everybody's going to become addicted.
Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, Shakira. I appreciate your time and all that we've done.